theyeshiva.net.
Okay, Tayir Yidden. We are up to Daf Kuf Beis Amud Aleph. 9 lines from the top, Daf Kuf Beis Amud Aleph. You see the line starts with Kshein Chayzrin to Unin, Bracha Lechatchila. Okay. So after the Gemarah defended Reb Chizda, what did Reb Chizda teach? That when you eat something, and you're eating a food that needs a bracha achrona in its place, you're not supposed to make a bracha achrona elsewhere. You have to make a bracha achrona here. For example, bread would be the classic example according to everybody. And then you change to another place, right? And you continue the food there, whether you take this challah, for example, to the new place and you continue eating it there. Or another example that would work, I mean, even if there is challah there, and you continue your meal, said Reb Chizda, you don't have to make a new bracha. You changed your place, but when you got up, it's not considered an akira, it's not considered an interruption of the first meal, because your eating there is a continuity, it's a continuation. Why? Because when you go there, you didn't stop your meal because you still have to come back. And even if you don't want to come back and you want to make a bracha, there's only one way you can make a bracha there, if you continue eating there, because you have to make a bracha where you ate the bread. So either you got to go back, which means you never really left. You left, but it's temporary because you have to go back. And if you don't want to go back, to make a bracha achrona, you have to continue eating to be able to make a bracha achrona even for the first food. Because if not, you won't be able to make a bracha achrona for the first food. So any way you look at it, you're continuing the meal. So therefore, when I go to the second house, I go to your house, I don't have to make a new hamaitzi. What about if I leave and I come back? I also don't have to make a new hamaitzi. Why? Because I'm just picking up where I left off. It's not considered a hefsek. That was Reb Chizda's chiddush, right? Reb Sheshes disagreed. Reb Sheshes said it doesn't have to do with the fact you have to come back. If you left, you interrupted it because it's about physical geography. Shinui Makom is about the physical akira. So the Gemarah questioned Reb Chizda because the Brisa clearly tells us that the only way in which you won't have to make a bracha when you leave and come back is if you left over a chayla or a zaken at the meal. Only then is it not an interruption. But if I didn't leave anybody, the Brisa said what? And I come back, it is an interruption. I have to make a new bracha. Clearly contradicting Reb Chizda. And you can't say it's talking about a case where they ate potato chips, because it says akru raglayim. They uprooted their feet. And whenever you say uprooted the feet, it means that really they were supposed to stay there. There was a chassan and a kala, so they had no choice. They felt like they had to leave. But really they weren't supposed to leave then. Why weren't they supposed to leave? Because it's something that you need a bracha achrona b'mekaymai. And nonetheless, there's a condition. He nichu chaylai zaken. They had to leave a sick man or an older man who couldn't run to the chassan and the kala, and only then don't you have to make a bracha. And the Gemara's response was, you're right, it's a good question, but I have no issue with that brisa, because that brisa, you could say, was authored by Rabbi Yehuda, because Rabbi Yehuda clearly, in another brisa, which is quoted on the Kuf Beis Amud Aleph, speaks about a case where chevra were eating, and they were eating, whether they were eating bread or something that needs a bracha achrona b'mekaymai. Again, there's the different shittas, if it's bread or cake or even wine or shivas haminin. Each rishon, according to his shitta, interprets the Gemarah according to his shitta. That's not clear in the Gemarah. And they left to Beis HaKnesses or Beis HaMedrash, whether they went to Daven Mincha or they went to Daven Ma'ariv or they went to learn, whatever it is, but they left. And the Chachamim say, when they leave, they don't have to make a bracha achrona. When they come back, they don't have to make a bracha rishayna. But Rabbi Yehuda argued. Rabbi Yehuda said it's only if they left over some chaverim. So we could say the first brisa is following Rabbi Yehuda, and that taka contradicts Reb Chizda. But Reb Chizda could go very well according to the Chachamim, and therefore, Adar, there's no proof that Reb Chizda has been refuted. All we know is that Rabbi Yehuda disagrees. Okay, but there's another shitta. From the other brayos, it seems like there's another shitta, so mele, it's fine. So now the Gemarah continues weiter. And in order to understand this question, we have to go back. We learned before 3 shittas, if you make Kiddush in Shul, and then you come home. Friday night, they would make Kiddush in Shul. Rav said, you're Yoitze Kiddush, you have to make a new Kiddush, but you have to make a new Hagafen in the house. Shmuel said, you're not Yoitze Kiddush, and you have to make a new Hagafen. You have to go to do everything in the house. Because Kiddush has to be b'makom sud. Rabbi Yochanan said, you don't have to do anything in the house. You yotze Kiddush, you yotze Hagafen. Rabbi Yochanan holds that Shinui Makom is b'chlal not an issue. He has a whole new shit. The Gemarah said Rabbi Yochanan was wrong, because the Brisa said Shinui Makom does have. But Rabbi Yochanan's shitta was, I don't care about Shinui Makom. No, he b'chlal doesn't associate food with place. Rabbi Yochanan holds it's two separate worlds. The fact that I'm eating bread here, or I'm eating cake here, or I'm drinking coffee here, has nothing to do with it. I made a bracha on the coffee. I don't care if I go upstairs. I'm drinking coffee. It's fine. Now, I should just mention in parentheses just an important halacha. Regardless of shinui makom, there's another question about making a new bracha on food if it wasn't there when you started to eat. Meaning, I have a cup of coffee here, yeah? Reb Nuchem is usually going to bring me another cup of coffee in a few minutes, right? Do I have to make a new shahakal on the new cup of coffee? What's the answer? I'm not changing places. I'm in the same place. I didn't change, right? I'm not making a new shahakal on this. Even if I sit here for 3 hours, I don't have to make a new shahakal on this, right? As long as there's no hesech hadas. Hesech hadas means even if you're in one place, but the hesech hadas means you stop eating, you're not interested in eating. Even if you go to the couch and you sit and you read a newspaper, and then you come back, you have to make a new bracha, not because shinui makom. You're in the same place. But because you took your mind off eating, you decided you don't want to eat anymore. The chiddush in this Gemarah is, I go to another house and I didn't take my mind off eating. I have an apple. I want to finish the apple. But you need to speak to me, right? So I run over to your house. I didn't take my mind off eating. So l'chayda, if I would be here, I wouldn't have to make a new bracha. That's the point. It's just very important to understand. Because if there's hesech hadas from eating, then even in the same place you have to make a new bracha. You understand what I'm saying? Even in the same place, I finish my supper and say I don't want to eat anymore, and I'm done. And I go, and then a half an hour later, right? I decide, you know what? The chicken looks geschmack. It happens everywhere. Yeah? You go back to the table. Don't be chaysha that I said this whole shia just to get him to give me a cup of coffee. He does it anyway. But on this coffee, I have to make a new bracha. I'll tell you why. If it's in front of me when I make a bracha on this, then even if I don't have in mind to drink it, let's say I'm eating apples and there's oranges, right? I don't want to eat the oranges now. I'm not thinking. But if the oranges were in front of me, the ha'etz on the apple will go on the oranges. But if the oranges were in the kitchen or in a different room and then somebody brings them out afterwards, so if when I made ha'etz on the apples, I had in mind that I want to eat oranges also, I don't have to make a new bracha. But I didn't have in mind, so when the oranges come, I have to make a new ha'etz on the oranges. Unless, of course, if I'm a guest by you and I don't know what you're going to serve. Like in the rest, so I make ha'etz, I'm like, whatever, it's on whatever gets served, that's fine. But if I'm in my own house, I just want to eat an apple, so I make ha'etz. Then I go to the refrigerator afterwards and I decide I want an orange too, or I want another apple. Right? So if it was in front of me by the bracha, I don't have to make a new bracha. But if it wasn't in front of me by the bracha, and when I made the first bracha shahakal, or ha'etz, I didn't have in mind the second food, I would have to make a new bracha on the second one. This doesn't have to do with shinui makom. This is all in the same place. This is all the idea of that the bracha of the first cup, doesn't apply to the second cup. I'll make a new bracha. By now, I should have in mind by my first shahakal on the next, but I didn't. So,
can you make a blanket?
I guess so.
What do you call it?
Like a condition for your whole life.
Whatever comes from now on, whatever shahakal item comes, you can choose.
You're saying you make a condition for your whole life. Whenever I say shahakal, it's on everything that comes.
For that day,
Every day, a new one.
Good. Is it a concept not to make brachas?
If you don't have to, you don't make an extra bracha. But if you have to, then it's a mitzvah to make a bracha. If you don't have to, you don't make. I can't make now a new shahakal on my coffee. It would be a bracha in vain.
I took the second.
But if you're going to bring me now a cup of water, right, and the water wasn't here, if the water was here, I don't have to make. But if you're going to bring me now a cup of water, I have to make a new shahakal.
I took a coffee this morning. I have most likely to have a second cup.
Very good. By your shahakal, you had in mind another coffee. Gesundheit.
What happens to the bracha?
Bracha chayna is one. Bracha chayna is one. You don't have to make a new bracha. But Rabbi Yochanan, okay, so this is just a parenthesis. But Rabbi Yochanan holds that even shinui makom is irrelevant. That's what he said. So I drink wine and then Shul, I come home after me. Yeah. The Gemarah refuted Rabbi Yochanan. So now the Gemarah says, what did we just learn? The reason the bedvarim atun bracha lachreim b'mkayim. When something that needs a bracha afterwards, and after bracha in its place. But when you go out, you don't have to make a bracha for what you ate. And when you come back, you don't have to make a new bracha for what you're going to eat. The Chachamim hold. It's only because it's something that requires a bracha achrayna in its place. That's why it says, Okru ragleiha. But what do we see from this brayse? If it's something that doesn't need a bracha achrayna in its place, even the Rabbanon would hold when you go out, you need a bracha for what you made. A bracha achrayna, when you come back, you need a bracha rishayna for what you're going to make. Doesn't this also refute Rabbi Yochanan? Because Rabbi Yochanan said, whenever you leave, you don't have to make a second bracha when you come back. Whether you're drinking water, or you're eating a potato, or you're eating bread, you never have to make another bracha, Rabbi Yochanan said. That was Rabbi Yochanan's chiddush. Shinui makom never has to make a bracha. Rabbi Yochanan didn't specify differences. By him, you never have to make another bracha. But this brayse, even if you don't hold like Rabbi Yehuda, even if you hold like the Rabbanon who are lenient, when are they lenient? Only if it's bracha achrayna b'mkaimai. But if it doesn't need a bracha achrayna b'mkaimai, then the Rabbanon would agree. Of course, you have to make a bracha when you come back if there's no zakein and chayla there.
Yochanan is talking about when you come back or when you go someplace else?
Good question. Shinui makom applies identically to both situations. That's what we see from the sugya. Going elsewhere and coming back would have exactly the same halacha for the same principle.
Even though you started there?
Yeah. In other words, if I start here and then I go to your house, if you say I have to make a new bracha in your house, you would also say that if I come back and continue, I have to make a new bracha. It's the same concept. It's the concept that Shinui Makom uprooted me from this place and interrupted the first meal. So now when I come to you, it's a new meal. And when I come back and continue, it's a new meal, even if it's the same plate of soup.
Once it's interrupted.
Once it's interrupted, it's interrupted, yeah. Yeah, once it's interrupted, it's interrupted. So therefore, we have a refutation of Rabbi Yochanan. So the Gemarah says, okay, we already refuted Rabbi Yochanan once from the previous brayse, which said that Shinui Makom you have to make a new bracha. So the Gemarah says, that's true, but why not? Could we say that this brayse is also a refutation of Rabbi Yochanan? He was refuted already, but can we add to the refutation one more brayse? What's the advantage if somebody is refuted? What's the advantage of adding another refutation? Pashat. What if somebody can answer the first refutation? Rabbi Yochanan's position would be rehabilitated. So we say, no, we have another refutation. Or what if somebody proves that brayse had a mistake in it? It had an error in it. There's other texts, there's other versions. All these things would bring back Rabbi Yochanan's position. So that's what the Gemarah is trying to say. Rabbi Yochanan is refuted from here, Rabbi Yochanan is refuted from here. Wherever you look in this sugi, you'll see that the Tanoim didn't agree with this. They felt, Shinui Makom have to make a new bracha. So the Gemarah says, no, Amalach Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan actually can answer this one very well. Rabbi Yochanan could say something very interesting. Hu adin da filat varim shein tuna bracha lachreim b'mkayma nami ein tzrichen lavarech. Really, the Chachamim hold that even things that don't require an aftermath bracha in the place that you ate them also don't warrant a second bracha if you leave and you come back.
It doesn't need a...
B'mkaimai? Shahakal, all the shahakals. Any shahakal.
Make it anywhere.
You can make it anywhere. If you eat chicken, if you eat soup, if you drink water, if you drink seltzer, you have to make a burden of Parshas. I could finish my coffee here, go upstairs and make a burden of Parshas. Because it doesn't need, and according to some Rishonim, even wine. And even Paris of Shivas Aminim. And according to some Rishonim, even cake.
It doesn't need.
Yeah, you could eat cake here and make ala michya up there.
So because I don't
L'poil, because there's a machlaikas, we always make a bracha achrayna b'mkaima on all mezainis, on all amaitzi, and any time we say ala michya, ala eitzer, ala gefen. Whenever we say the longer bracha achrayna called bracha me'ein shalosh, we make it b'mkaima because there's three shittas. But on shahakals, whenever you make burden of Parshas, it doesn't have to be b'mkaima according to anybody. If you're making a burden of Parshas, it doesn't have to be b'mkaima.
Even those that
And Rabbi Yochanan held that even then you don't have to make a new bracha. So either Chachamim contradict him. So Rabbi Yochanan is going to answer, really, the Chachamim hold like me. You don't have to make a new bracha. They used the words akru ragleya, the chevra was sitting and they uprooted their feet. And we explained, why would it say akru ragleya? What their feet were they used crazy glue. What's akru ragleya? V'halchu, they went. Let's say I'm saying, let's say I tell you guys, I have to go somewhere. What is it? I have to uproot my feet and go somewhere? I have to go somewhere. Akru ragleya, their raglayim was stuck. The pshat is their raglayim were planted halachically. Because if it's something that needs a bracha achrona b'mkaimai, you can't just leave. You're stuck till you finish the bracha. So yes, their raglayim were planted, not physically, but legally, halachically. Which for a Jew may be even stronger than physically. So they need to do an akiras raglayim, but there's a chasen and a kala, so they go. And the truth is that we learn from this a halacha, that if there's a mitzvah that's going to pass, you're allowed to leave your place, even though you didn't make a bracha achrona. It's a very important halach. We learned from this a gavaldik halach. Usually you're not supposed to leave your place. But let's say there's going to be a minyan for mincha, right? I'm sitting at my chasen hall, my bar mitzvah, and I'm having a meal. I washed. I'm supposed to bench. And downstairs is going to be a minyan for mincha. It's a mitzvah iveris. If I don't do it now, I'm not going to be able to daven b'tzibur. I could daven in the chasen hall without a minyan, but I want to daven with a minyan. Am I allowed to leave without benching? I'm going to come back. Usually we say you're not allowed to leave. You first have to bench, as we discussed yesterday. But because it's a mitzvah, like chas and kala, it's a mitzvah to go greet and welcome and celebrate with a chas and kala. So it's a mitzvah iveris. You're allowed to leave without benching. You're allowed to leave without benching. Of course, you have to come back to bench, but you're allowed to leave. Usually you're not. So that's a very important idea. That's why it says akru ragleya. Yeah. Now, as I said, the Rambam's shitta was that when you come back, they have to bench and then make a new hamaitzi, unless they left somebody there, right? That was the Rambam shitta. If you hold that, like Reb Sheshes, that when you even if you eat bread, you have to make a new bracha. Tosfos' shitta was, it doesn't mean they have to bench when they come back. It just means the best thing is to bench before you leave, because you may stay there for a long time and you may forget to come back, or you may stay there for a long time and your digestion will already happen. You know, the chosin and kala, it's lebedik, and you'll never end up benching. So it's an eitzah toiva. Like Reb Sheshes, as medaf machen a zweite bracha, filav bright. They have to make a second bracha, even with tov and bracha lachrav b'mkaimer. Right? That's what we're talking about, the shit of Rabbi Yehuda. The shit of Rabbi Yehuda, that if there's no mesubim, you have to make a new bracha. If there's mesubim, everybody holds, it's fine.
So basically, the Pesachim goes...
Yeah. The Pesachim is following Rabbi Yehuda, yeah. So really, they hold that what, like me, Rabbi Yochanan says, that you don't have to make a new bracha, even if it's a bar nefashos. That's what they went. That's what they were eating. Why did they say akru ragleya and loidiach hakoychid Rabbi Yehuda? The Bryce is trying to teach you the koyach, meaning the chiddush, the strength, the chiddush of Rabbi Yehuda. That even things that need a bracha afterwards, the only reason you have to make a new bracha is because they left some people. But if they didn't leave anybody, when they leave, they need a brachas hamazon on what they ate. When they come back, they need a new bracha second time. In other words, really, Rabbi Yochanan could say this brisa does not refute me. The Chachamim say that the only reason you don't need a new bracha is because it was something that akru ragleya, meaning it was like bread. So that means if it was not bread, if they were just drinking seltzer or coffee, they would need a bracha lacharei. They would need a second bracha. I would say no, they actually don't. So why does it say this case? Because you want to bring out the novelty of Rabbi Yehuda, that even if it's something that requires a bracha achrona in its place, still, Rabbi Yehuda holds, if you leave and you come back, you need a new hamaitzi on your bread, unless you left people over there who kept the seats warm and then the meal wasn't interrupted. To bring out the chiddush of Rabbi Yehuda, that's why the Chachamim used that scenario, even though they would be lenient much more than what they're saying. They would be lenient like me too.
Someone left and he forgot, and he's still done.
If somebody left and he forgot, so according to some shittas and halacha, you come back, if you could. If you can't come back, so then he benches where he is.
They have to eat again.
If you have, yeah. If you have bread, you should continue the meal and then bench.
You didn't have it in mind.
But if you were in the airport and you ate a sandwich, then you go on the plane, right? The plane took off. You don't have anything yet to bench. You can't go back to the airport. It's going to be a little hard. Unless you want to do an emergency landing, but I'm not sure you want to do that.
So in that example,
Unless like the guy once put on tefillin in Atlanta, they thought it's a Lahavdillah suicide bomber and they made an emergency landing. But I'm not sure you want to do that, huh?
After 9/11.
After 9/11, yeah. I'm sorry, what?
thank you. So he had the sandwich in the airport, and he didn't bench, or he got for whatever reason, and now he's on the plane. He didn't have in mind he's going to bench on the plane, but now he's on the plane, and he has bread there. So he should wash and make a bracha, or just have a piece of it.
That's a good question. So when you're on the plane and you have a piece of bread, do you have to make a new bracha on the bread? Do you have to wash, right? Okay, so that's a very good question. So let's break it down. According to Reb Chizda, you wouldn't have to make a new bracha on the bread because it's bread, and bread is something that even when you leave, you didn't interrupt your first meal because you still have to come back or continue eating, so you don't have to make a new hamaitzi on the bread, right? Unless you decided afterwards you don't want to eat anymore, and then even in the same room you would have to make a new bracha. But if you just rushed onto the plane, but you still didn't finish your sandwich, so there was no hesech hadas, meaning you still want to eat, then you don't have to make a nu hamaitzi on the bread, according to Reb Chizda. According to Reb Sheshes, you would have to make a nu hamaitzi on the bread because you changed locations. You went onto the plane and you changed locations, so you would have to make a new bracha on the bread. When it comes to washing, though, that has to do with something else. That has to do is if you're conscientious of your hands being clean, and then you don't have to do no eat until it's yadayim. But if you diverted your mind from all of it and you were not conscious of your hands, what they touched, where they went, and so forth, you would have to do an untilis yadayim. But if it was just a few minutes and you usually know what you're doing with your hands, touching a carry-on is not a problem, and sitting down, then you wouldn't have to wash your hands again. And according to Reb Chizda, you wouldn't have to make a new hamaitzi. You would continue eating your sandwich, and then you would do one benching for both meals.
Just wash without a bracha.
You don't have to. You could. You can always wash without a bracha.
You touched. You weren't aware of where your hands were. I'm asking, why would you, according to that sheet, where you'd have to wash with a bracha? Why would it be with a bracha? Why wouldn't it just be one?
No, for example, if you get up in the middle of your meal, Shabbos or any day, and you go to the bathroom, right? You go to the bathroom, so then we wash our hands afterwards like we wash before bread, but taka without a bracha. You're right.
No, we wash because we went to the facilities.
But I'm saying you wash for natilas yadayim, not only for facilities. You re-wash like you're washing for bread, but you do it without a bracha.
And that's in all cases where there's a hesek.
Yes. Yeah.
You'll have to go to the
Right.
But it's
You wash it differently.
However you wash, whatever you wash. You wash for the bathroom like you always do wash for the bathroom,
It's also
but also for the sukkah,
in other words, it's you wash.
according to most poskim.
When you had hesek you always wash
Because your hands were active and
for bread, but without a bracha.
right.
Wait, the mechanics of the washing. So
It's like before bread.
Wash outside.
So not the
They
one
must
Right.
see too.
okay. And but then the bracha for after the bathroom.
You do after. But you're not making a new hamaitzi.
Right.
You're not making a new hamaitzi because you just went to the bathroom, yeah?
That's why they serve lasagna scrolls. You shouldn't have a shiloh.
Yeah. So Rabbi Yochanan answered the question, and therefore there's no refutation to Rabbi Yochanan. Says the Gemarah, Tanya Kavaseder Reb Chizda. Tanya Kavaseder Reb Chizda. An interesting Gemarah the Rashbam makes. We have a klal in halacha, koiche de hetera adif. Koiche de hetera adif means, if I have two opinions, one is lenient, one is permitting me, and one is prohibiting me, we always focus on the shitta that permits, koiche de hetera adif, on permits. Meaning, if we want to bring out the novelty of one of the shittas, we will focus on the koyach ha-heter. What's the reason for this? What's the reason? So Rashi explains this in the beginning of Maseches Beitza, where it says koiche de hetera adif. Rashi says, I'll say it on my own, it's a very interesting idea. To be machmer, you don't have to be a Talmud Chacham. To be matir, you actually have to know how to learn. In other words, I can always say forbidden. Right? Anybody, I'm allowed to do this on Shabbos? No. I'm allowed to eat this? No. 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 Everybody could say no. It's not a big deal to say no. It's a big deal to say yes. To say yes, you're allowed, it means the person actually knows. Right? The person actually knows. We were once learning Hilchas Shabbos. My chavra students in yeshiva, so I said, listen, here's the call before we begin. Before you begin learning Hilchas Shabbos, everything is permissible. You're allowed to do everything on Shabbos. Once you start learning Hilchas Shabbos, everything is forbidden. You're not allowed to do anything. You have to basically sit on your couch for 24 hours like this. Once you really learn Hilchas Shabbos, there are a lot of things that are forbidden, and there are a lot of things that are permitted. But if I don't know, everything is forbidden. No. That's not a chiddush. Koich de hetera, the koich to be matir, actually means you know. And because you know, you say, no, this is fine. This wasn't fine. This is fine. So that's why we focus much more on the koich of heter. In Chassidus it says the reason koich de hetera adif is because the koich of Isur the neshama had before it came to the world also. Not doing averis, not doing things the neshama did also in heaven. The chiddush of the neshama coming to this world is that what it can do, not what it can't do. What it can do, we had up there. The chiddush of this world is that you take the world and you change it, you transform it. So koich de hetera adif. So the Rashbam asks a question. Rabbi Yochanan is saying that we want to bring out the chiddush of Rabbi Yehuda. We shouldn't want to do that. We should want to bring out the chiddush of the Chachamim. Because the Chachamim are the matirim. Rabbi Yehuda is the one who's saying, no, not good. The Chacham are the one who's saying, good. It's fine. You don't have to. They're the ones who are matir. So we should say, koich de hetera adif. That's the Rashbam's question. What's the logic here? The Gemarah is not following its internal system of logic that you focus on the chiddush of koich heter. So take a look at what the Rashbam answers. Okay? Loidiach koich de Rabbi Yehuda. You see, loidiach koich de Rabbi Yehuda. It's, I don't know where it is. The line starts, Hayidei Braisis in the Rashbam. Loidiach, you see it? Loidiach. From not the very wide lines and not the very narrow lines. The intermediary wide lines, right? The fourth line. Again, not from the very wide lines, from the intermediary wide lines. The Beinanim, yeah. Loidiach HaKoiched Rabbi Yehuda. Kshein yoitzin tu'unim bracha l'mafreya. Right? That he says they need a bracha when they leave. Aval b'shar dvarim loihoya yachal loymar. Kshein yoitzin, I'm doing it with the Bach. Kshein yoitzin tu'unim bracha l'mafreya. Shafilu hachi ein tzrichin bracha la'achareyan bim kaiman. We want to focus on the chiddush of Rabbi Yehuda. The chiddush of Rabbi Yehuda tells us that what? That when they leave, they need to make a bracha l'mafreya, and when they come back, they need to make a bracha rishona. That's the chiddush of Rabbi Yehuda. That even things that need a bracha acharona b'mkaima, you still have to make a second bracha when you come back, which is a gevaldik chiddush of Rabbi Yehuda. How stringent he is. Aval b'shar dvarim, by other things, loihoya yachal loymar. And when they come back, they need a new bracha. In other words, the fact that when you don't need a bracha achrayna b'mkaima, you have to make a new bracha, that's not such a chiddush. Right? That's not such a chiddush because you don't need a bracha achrayna b'mkaima. The chiddush is that even he could have done it on other things, but then it wouldn't be a chiddush. He wants to bring out that even things that need a bracha, you need a new bracha. Here's a question. Adirab. L'shmein and dvarim shein tzrichim bracha lachreim b'mkaiman loidiach and koicha de rabbanon de mekilin kol kach. Fakert. You should bring out the leniency of the rabbanon. Shafilu aleim ein tzrichim levarach mishum de koich de teira adif. Bring out the chiddush of the rabbanon according to Rabbi Yochanan that even if you don't need a bracha achrayna b'mkaima, you don't have to make a new bracha. Gevaldik chiddush. It says ein loymar kach. You know why? The ein koichen koyach chshivus and ein matzrichen levarich. This shita of Rabbi Yochanan, you never have to make a new bracha. It's not, you don't say on it koicha de teiradav that it's a choshev. Why? The svarahu. It's actually very logical. The kivan shaloi hoya hesach hadas bein tayim lama yachzav yavarich. Shinui makim is a chiddush. I'm drinking a cup of coffee. I want to continue it upstairs. There was no hesach hadas. Why should I have to make a new bracha? It's the same cup of coffee. I went somewhere else. I came back. They left to Shul. They came back. They wanted to continue eating. They never stopped. They never took their mind off eating. It's a chiddush that if you left the geographical location, the meal is over. Because mitzad their mind, you could say, It's a very special. No, the Rabbi Yochanan is a svara, so it's not such a chiddush. Aval koyach Rabbi Yehuda adif tvei shemachmir shtei chumras al divrei chachamim. Rabbi Yehuda is not only stringent; he goes up 2 notches. The loy mi boy dvarim shein strichim bracha lachreim bim kaimer shechayev achreim levarach af b'shechavein of poitrin afilu dvarim at strichim bracha achreim bim kaimer nami dechayev vilchechache koychet esuradav. Rabbi Yehuda's stringency is so intense. First of all, he says that if you don't make a bracha achrein in its place and you leave, you have to make a new bracha. That itself is a chiddush. That even though I wanted to come back and eat or drink, sorry, it's a new meal. Fine. Now I'm saying, even if I have to make a bracha achrein b'mekayim, I still have to make a new bracha. That's a real stringency. Here you say koychet suradav. Here we want to bring out the chiddush of Rabbi Yehuda, because the shita of Chaim, according to Rabbi Yochanan, is actually ganz glatt. In other words, it doesn't require a special svara. It's a glatt svara. So the fact that you were struggling yesterday, the Rashbam is made that actually. Okay. Zog the Gemarah, Tanya Kavaseder Reb Chizda. We have a brisa that supports Reb Chizda. Chavedim shayim mesubin l'shtas yayin. Chavedim means Talmidei Chachamim who are reclined together to drink wine. For akru, because that's how they used to drink. That's how they used to. Everybody had a little couch, and they would lay on the couch like a little bed, and there was a table in front of you, and they were together mesubin. They were together, reclining together, drinking wine. For akru raglein, and they uprooted their feet. V'chazru, and they came back. Ein tzrichin levarech. They don't have to make a new bracha. They don't have to make a new bracha. And this brayse is obviously talking about wine, which according to the Rashbam works perfectly, that even wine is something that requires a bracha achreina in its place. You have to make a lagefen in its place. So we have here an explicit proof to Reb Chizda that anything that you eat or drink, and you have to make a bracha achrein in its place, and you leave, and you come back, you don't have to make a second bracha, because shinui makam does not apply. Why? Because shinui makam means by changing your geography, you interrupted your drinking feast or meal, and here you did not. You did not. Of course, as we mentioned earlier, Tosfos is not goyris yayin, because if it would be goyris yayin, this would be a very strong proof that even yayin needs a bracha achreina b'mkayma, and Itaka holds that yayin doesn't. Only bread and grain, cake needs, and that's why there's another lashon. They're not goyris yayin. They say chavim shoyim mesubin for akru raglein. So you could say they were mesubin to eat bread, or they were mesubin to eat mezainis, and there is no proof here for that particular machlokes. Yeah, he says the chshivas is only by bread and by mezainis, not by wine and not by shivas hamin. And this concludes the sugya of shinui makam without a clear halacha. First, the Gemarah quoted Reb Chizda and asked a question on Reb Chizda from a brayse. The Gemarah answered it. Here, the Gemarah does support Reb Chizda, and indeed, this is one very interesting situation where, among the Jewish people, there became a split in this halacha. If you'll open up a Shulchan Aruch, Chaim Siman Kuf Ayin Ches, written by Rabbi Yosef Karo, the great author of the Shulchan Aruch from Tzfas, 1500s. Rabbi Yosef Karo, La Halacha L'Maisa, follows this whole sugya according to Rabbi Sheshes. Meaning you'll read through Shulchan Aruch, and he says you always have to make a new bracha. Whether you're drinking water or you're eating bread, whatever you're eating. If you go out of the house and you go speak to somebody, you go to another house, you come back, you continue eating somewhere, you always have to make a new hamaitzi. In other words, he follows Reb Sheshes, no difference what you're eating, there is always shinui makam.
Even without this.
Even without Hesach Hadas. Hesach Hadas is not a chiddush. Hesach Hadas would be even in the same place, you have to make a new bracha. That's Siman Kuf Hayin Tesel Shulchan Aruch. When a person washes mayim achreinim, or they say let's bench, they mesach das from benching, from eating, and they finish the meal, and now you want to eat again, you have to make a new bracha. That's not a chiddush. We're talking without hesach hadas. Even if I took the food in my hand, I took the challah man, and I go to your house, I have to make a new bracha. That's the shitta of the Shulchan Aruch, which is also before the Shulchan Aruch the shitta of the Rambam, which follows basically Reb Sheshis. Reb Chizda was refuted by the first Bryce, even though the Gemarah answered it, that only if you left people behind at the meal, meaning if it's a Shabbos table, and I go to your house, but people stayed at the meal, even children, my wife, my children, anybody, guests, and I come back, then I don't have to make a new hamaitzi. But if there's nobody left at the table, I have to make a new hamaitzi. That is the Shittas HaRambam, and it's the Shittas HaShulchan Aruch. On the other hand, you had the Rosh, Rabbeinu Asher, who paskened like Reb Chizda, and the Ramah in Shulchan Aruch, Rabbeinu Moshe Isserlish, who introduced the minhagim of the Ashkenazim in the Shulchan Aruch because Rabbi Yosef Karo was a Sfardi, followed usually the Rambam, who was a Sfardi. The Ramah in Shulchan Aruch over there says, however, there's a whole other opinion. And he brings the whole other opinion, which is Reb Chizda's side, which basically makes this very important distinction between bread and Bar Nefashis rabbis. And as the Ramah says, that's the minhag by us, that we are lenient, like the shit of Reb Chizda, and we'd never make a new hamaitzi if there was no hesach hadas, or a new mezainis, or a new ha'etz if we're eating pomegranates or grapes or figs, the shivas aminim, or we're drinking wine, you will not make a new Bar Priyagofen. That is the shita of the Ramah. Another important thing is, and this is also it follows the same two trends, according to the Shita of the Rambam and the Shita of the Shulchan Aruch, when you come back, you don't only have to make a new hamaitzi, you have to bench first. And then you make your new hamaitzi. In other words, it's completely done. He's so strict about it. You're done. Your mamash done. Where, according to the other Shita, even when you have to come back and make a new bracha, you don't have to make a bracha achrayna first. You could just continue eating, make a new bracha, and then you make one bracha achrayna on both. So those are two trends in Shulchan Aruch itself. You see the Shulchan Aruch has a shit of Reb Sheshis, Ramah has a shit of Reb Chizda, Shittas HaRambam, Shittas HaRosh, basically in some ways Ashkenazim, who are much more lenient than Sfardim.
Even according to Reb Sheshis, if you're jogging and you take a bottle of water,
right.
You don't have to make that.
It seems that according to everybody, Hol Chedrachim, because that's brought in Shulchan Aruch, Hol Chedrachim, he says you make a bracha here and you bench there. Because even just taking a walk, a couple takes a walk, right? They take a bottle of water, or just a person takes a walk, you take a bottle of water, and you're drinking throughout the walk, right? So then, or challah, according to the Pesachim, even challah, whatever you're eating, so you're eating while you're walking, so there was never a kviyas makayim because lechatchila it was al manas to walk. So in other words, you never established, so you're not uprooting yourself from a place. The whole idea of shinui makam is you interrupted your meal. Why'd you interrupt your meal? Because you left the place of the meal. Excuse me, this meal doesn't have a place. The place of this meal is the track. It's the track, right? It's through up Kakiyat mountain. That's my track. That's the place. The whole mountain is my place. The whole mountain is my place. Where was the shinui makam?
I need the definition.
By the way, I looked up yesterday your question if you're hiking and then you go into a private place to drink, and I saw that the Dirshu brings from Shal Shuvas Evan Yisrael that they still don't have to make a bracha. If they're hiking and drinking a whole time or eating a whole time, whatever they're eating, even potato chips, and then you go into a place, even if it's a bias, he says they don't have to make a bracha, even though they did. That's what he timed. So there's such a shit they don't have to make a bracha because he says it's not shinui makom because they never made a makom. Even though they established themselves indoors, they don't have to make. Whatever, stop. I just want to be mayor. He says because there's no kviyas in. That's what he timed us. I thought whatever. Okay.
According to just leaving means for a minute, like go through the cipher from your book. What's the deal?
That's a very good question. What does leaving mean? So many understood. He says, for example, if you go out of your house to speak to a friend, if you stay in the house, it's not a problem. If you stay in the dining room, but if you go out of the door, let's say people come for tzedakah, right? And you go out, right? And you come back. He says you have to make a new hamaitzi. So the Shulchan Aruch Harav says clearly that it's talking about only when you had a long conversation with them. He says, or you went to Shul. In other words, you went out for a significant amount of time. The Shul clearly says, if you went out just, let's say, to give tzedakah to somebody, or just to, you take a telephone call, right? The telephone call in your bedroom, and you take a telephone call. You don't want your kids to hear, and you're coming right back. Do you have to make a new bracha?
Even for a long time, myself has chadas.
No, we're talking if there's no hesach hadas. There's no. I went to take a telephone call. I want to come back to eat my chicken, and I didn't finish the kugli, and I didn't finish the chicken, didn't finish dessert. Come on, that's not called hesach hadas. So what about going to the bathroom? We all go to the bathroom. Rav Sheshes holds every time Shabbos you go to the bathroom, you have to make a new hamaitzi. Interesting. So the Mishnah Berurah clearly says, yeah. He says, you go outside, a little thing, you come back. But the Shulchan Aruch Harav, the Balatanya says absolutely not. He says, if there's a kviyas in the Suda, and you make a little hefsek, the Levush also says it clearly. Reb Mordechai Yafet, the Baal HaLevushim, also says clearly, that anything that is a temporary hefsek, right? So it's not called an akira. You didn't uproot your place because you didn't go into a new thing. You're just doing a temporary. You're going to the bathroom, Parshas, because you need to go to the bathroom. You want to come right back to the meal. So it's not considered a hefsek because it's a very temporary thing that a person, and it's almost part of the plan. It's in the middle of a meal. A person can have to go to the bathroom. In the middle of the meal, you may have to take a call. And what about waiters? What about if I have to get wine from the basement? If I have food in the basement, in the refrigerator, so I go out, I have to make a new bracha, right? Yeah. So the truth is here, everybody holds that, does a waiter have to make a new bracha? No. Because when you go to get wine from the basement, you weren't oiker the meal. There was no shinui makom. Yeah, you left the place, but why'd you leave the place? To go bring food. So does a waiter, every time he comes back, have to make a new bracha? No, he doesn't have to make a new bracha. But the Alter Rebbe says clearly, the Levush says, and the Alter Rebbe says in Shulchan Aruch, that even if you go to the bathroom, it's not called a hefsek. And the same would be according to our minhag, with things that are not tom bracha lachran. Let's say we're sitting and drinking coffee together. So he says that if it's something that you sit with a kviyas, and it's something that a kviyas helps, something like a kviyas helps, and he gives an example of coffee, where people sit to drink it, it's part of a kviyas, then a temporary hefsek would not require a new bracha when you come back.
But if you drink coffee like you're standing and you go to the bathroom coming back, you for sure have to make a new bracha.
You would make a new bracha. If it's something that's arai, the whole eating and drinking is arai. Again, if when you made a bracha, you didn't even want to be here, you wanted to walk around, then we already explained that you never need. Remember that. So hol chidrachim, what's the difference? In this place you have hol chidrachim indoors. They go here, they go there, they go there, they go there. So remember, but if I wanted to drink, I wanted to sit, I wanted to be in a place. So if he says it's a kviyas, and it's something that a kviyas is moyelis on it, people would sit down to drink beer, sheikh, or mei dvash, med, these types of things. So then a hefsek arai, I go outside to speak to somebody, right? And I come back, I wouldn't have to make a new shahakal. Unless I had a long conversation, or I went to see somebody, or I get involved, have a business call, so now I'm involved in business. It's something that's toifus muk, or I go to Shul to daven, then I have to make a new bracha, even if there's a kviyas. Or in the case of hamoitzi, according to the Pesachim. But if it's something that I sit down, I want to mock him, but it's not something that's kviyas, and it's something that kviyas is my eles, then it's mashma that the hefsek arai takes away the achilas arai. And therefore you would have to make a new bracha. But from the Mishnah Berurah is mashma much more stringent. That in every situation he says you go in the kavav, you have to make a new bracha. Another interesting question, halacha happens in the same house. The Mishnah Berurah tainas that from one room to another room, we said if you hadn't das by the bracha, you're always good. When I made a bracha on this coffee, I decided I want to continue it upstairs, even though I'm sitting and drinking here. It's not shinui makom and it's good, right? But if it's mibayis labayis, das doesn't help. Or mibayis lachotz, das doesn't help. The Mishnah Berurah is makel that mibayis mecheder lecheder, from here to upstairs, even with no das, you shouldn't make a new bracha. Even though the Paiskim, based on the Achroinim, on most Achroinim, he clearly says they say yeah, but he finds different ways how to interpret the Gemarah and so forth. Shulchan Aruch Harav, he says Paskins that not. If you go from cheder to cheder, let's say if I would take this coffee now and go upstairs, I should make a new bracha shahakal, because when I made shahakal, I didn't have in mind that I want to finish it upstairs. Absolutely not. So I would make a new shahakal. I can't see upstairs from down here, right? It's impossible. So that would be another very practical difference. So these are basically the two streams of halacha in this particular area.
I think the Pesachim he holds the wine is actually in Chaim, good pater shahakal.
Yeah, wine pater shahakal.
Even though you don't have to make.
Even though you don't have to make a bracha l'chayim kaima. In terms of mashke, it's chosh. Even though you don't have to make a bracha l'chayim kaima.
Just to be practical here, most of the time you drink a coffee, you walk around from one tent to the other. It's like all gedrukt.
So I feel that a lot of people, when they make a coffee upstairs, even though they make shahakal upstairs, right? Their mindset is they're not standing upstairs for a shmuas with somebody. It's not like you're meeting somebody upstairs and you're sitting there. Then it would be an issue when you leave to the tent. But lechatchila, they're like hol chedrachim. They're taking a walk. They make a coffee, yeah, and then they meet somebody in shul, and then they go outside for a cigarette, and then there's a kiddush in the tent. Okay, so it's like hol chedrachim. It's just they're not getting the exercise benefits, but in halach it's hol chedrachim. In other words, they were not kavei mokem. Their idea is I want to walk. That's why I felt if somebody makes a coffee downstairs and then they come to the shir, people do it and they don't make a new shahakal. Really, they should be making a new shahakal. They didn't have bidayah when they made shahakal. But l'cha'ayre, when they made the coffee, even though they sipped it over there, their mindset wasn't there. Their mindset was, it's not like when I'm sitting here at a shir, I'm planning to sit it till the end. So I think that there's a lot of room to be makel and understand that you don't have to make a new bracha, especially the Mishnah Brura who holds that mibayis, mechedel, lecheder, and one bayis, even without das, there's a big shitta that holds that you don't have to make another bracha. So he holds that you shouldn't bichlal.
The whole svara should really be, because when you take a cup of coffee, you want to finish it. The difference whether you change.
Yeah, and I want to be in a place. I'm in
the
this
whole
place.
idea was you made a shahakal to finish the entire cup. You didn't want to finish half and then say, oh, it's not finished. So that should really be the svara of not.
Okay, I mean, you're saying it means you have bidayah to be somewhere else, but I want to finish the cup here. Some people want to finish the cup, some people don't want to finish the cup. I don't know if that's negeya so much.
You made a shahakal to drink it up.
I'll try to finish it, but I don't always finish it.
Why a lot of times chefs, when you're going to play another one, and when final click is tanur, just a line to tanur, we're asking the question. Here, good Chizar of Shashes, then we find, so it's the lead in the Chachomah, we're going to ask this. Why is it? How can you argue when there's a...
We learned before, you're asking why are the Amirayim arguing if the Tanaim are already arguing? We learned before that Reb Huna said something, and they told him that it says in a Braisa. The Gemarah says, so why did he say it? So the Gemarah says, because Reb Huna didn't hear about the Braisa. So the Rashbam says the Amirayim knew all the Mishnahs by heart, but they didn't know all the Braisas by heart. This is all Braisas, it's not Mishnahs. If it would have been a Mishnah, you would have a good ha'ara. The fact that they didn't know all the Braisas was a very common thing. That's why it says Tanya Kavaseder Reb Chizda. When did Kavaseder Reb Chizda? So why did Reb Chizda say it if it's a Braisa? He didn't know the Braisa. The point is, yeah, there's always a difference. Mishnahs they were expected to know. You couldn't be an Amayr if you didn't know every Mishnah. Like you couldn't start. You had to know every Mishnah. But Braisas outside, Bar Yesa. We learned before Kol Avodah Basad, it's outside. So Braisas they didn't always know because they didn't have the same authority like the Mishnahs. The question is, the Gemara says here, Tanya Kavas Seder Reb Chizda, right? This is a raya to Reb Chizda. Yeah? So, I want to finish, take a look in the Rashbam. Tanya Kavas Seder Reb Chizda, Chaverim shal yemesubban lishtas yayin. V'hainu ki Reb Chizda, the Omar, Dvarim shatu'unim bracha lachreim b'mkaiman, ein shrichel levarech. V'ha behedye mesayel Reb Chizda mediktani yayin. This clearly supports Reb Chizda, who says, clearly it says yayin, and the Rashbam holds that yayin is something you need a bracha chrenim b'mkaiman. Avol ba'huda la'el, loitone yayin behedye. In the previous case, where it says that they were sitting and eating and they went to the Beis Medrash, it doesn't say they were drinking wine. It just says Shayim Mesubin. So mail over there, that's why we didn't say from there Tanya Kavasei Reb Chizda. It's another point. Before it didn't say it was yayin. It says akru ragleim. So we explained akru ragleim means probably they were eating something that needs a bracha, but it didn't say clearly yayin. So therefore, it wasn't the best proof for Reb Chizda. It wasn't so explicit. Here it says yayin. When it says yayin, over there you can argue. Over there, over there, you can ask, what was it? What was it?
Even though it says akru ragleim.
It says akru ragleim.
It's clear what it is, but it's still not so.
It's not so explicit, right? But it doesn't say tiny. Over here it says clearly. Over here it says clearly yayin. So that's very important because it says clearly yayin. So it's mamish something that clearly supports Reb Chizda. That makes a distinction. If it was yayin, yeah. If not, not. Where the other brayso, you're not sure. Like Rabbi Yochanan believes that the Chacham hold like him. So this is a clear raya to Reb Chizda. Says the Rashbam, Miyushaminan mishmaitin. What do we learn from here? Shinu yayin ein tzarich levarech berachas hayayin. If you change your place from drinking wine, no new bracha is needed. Aval mevarech hatoiva hametiv. You still have to make a new hatoiva hametiv, right? When I come to your house and you bring a new bottle, I have to make hatoiva, but not new agafen. Shinui makim b'shivas haminin shetunim bracha lachreim imkayim mein shalosh. What if I'm eating shivas haminin like grapes or figs, which need a bracha achreim imkayim? It can go in oichel b'bayis v'chazer v'achel b'bayis acher kaidum shaberech achreim. I eat figs here and then I go to your house and I continue to eat figs. Oish achel b'bayis I eat here v'alech l'shuk. I go to the marketplace v'chazer v'gam v'sadas b'bayis acher and then I go to your house. V'chol elu ein tzarich lachzer levarich tchila. See the Rashbam is paskening here. That shitta, which later becomes the shitta of the Rosh, and the shitta of the Ramon, the shitta of the Ashkenazim, you never have to eat and make a new bracha. The lekive kama hadar. You're always going back to your first setting, to your first meal. It's always a hemshech. The Tanya Kavasei Reb Chizda. Why? Because we have a Tanya. The Gemarah says we have support for Reb Chizda, and that's why that's the halach. Avol shar peiros umashkin she'enim b'shivas aminim she'enim tzrichim bracha lacharein. Any other fruits or liquids that don't need a bracha achrein in its place. Bim kaiman v'achal b'bayis zev v'chazav v'achal b'bayis acher tzarich levarich tchila. Here he sums it up lahalach. Avol mipina lepina b'bayis echad ein tzarich levarich. In one house, corner to corner. Now here's two ways of understanding this. What does pina lepina mean? Does pina lepina mean one room, or does pina lepina mean one house? It's mashma first. Then he says bayis echad, right? This becomes a very serious issue. Ein tzarich levarich k'tanya b'masnisa debeir of hinek. Umashum de kaboy lemisne v'akru raglein k'dei leilach lebeis hamedrash hilchach knoket chaverim talmidei chachamim. Why does it use the word chaverim, which means talmidei chacham? Talmidei chacham are called friends because the definition of a talmid chacham is that you're a friendly person. You love other people. It's very interesting when the Gemarah has to choose a slang for talmidei chachamim. What's the slang? Chaverim, friends. It's not usually what you associate with scholars. Scholars are often hermits, but the way Chazal always is chaverim. So the Rishonim say because they were very friendly people, they were friends, they loved other people. You can't be a Talmid Chacham without that. Stam ha'ara ba'alma. So since they're going to the Beis Medrash, so therefore the proper term is chaverim, which is Talmid Chacham. That's where they're going to learn. Okay, so here is the Rashbam's Psak Halacha. As I told you, this is the shita that will dominate in the Rashbam's world. The Rashbam was a grandson of Rashi, so you're dealing with France, where in the Sfardim had a different shitta. The Rambam learned the Gemarah differently. In fact, some people even argue, some Rishonim, that the Girsa is not Tanya Kavasei the Reb Chizda. Some say it's Tanya Kavasei the Rabbi Yochanan, but they still don't support Rabbi Yochanan because the Gemarah clearly refutes Rabbi Yochanan, and that's why, according to some Rishonim who are not even good as Tanya Kavasei the Reb Chizda, they say the Allah is not Reb Chizda because earlier the Gemarah refuted Reb Chizda, even though the Gemarah had an answer, but because the Gemarah tried to refute him, so therefore they do not agree with Reb Chizda. And as I told you, this is the shit of the Shulchan Aruch, it's the shit of Rabbi Hananel, it's the shit of the Rif, and many other Rishonim. Let's just take a look finally at Tosfos, because it's very interesting, and then we'll finish with this. V'akru ragleim leilach lebeis hakneses. You see, the second to the last Tosfos. Mikan mashma sheim shachach liispalel. I sit down for dinner. I sit down for late lunch, and I forgot I didn't daven mincha. B'nisker b'emtza suda v'ispalel, and I daven. After davening, I have to make a new amoitzi. From here we see they left. They went to Shul. They came back. They came back, and what did the Chachamim say? They don't have to make a new bracha. And even Rabbi Yehuda held that if they left somebody behind, they don't have to make a new bracha. She'ein tzarich bracha afilu lechatchila. You don't have to make a bracha, even lechatchila. It's not only if you forgot. They don't have to make a bracha. Why? Because Shinui Makom here doesn't matter, because it was something that Told bracha lachar bim kaimai, or there were mesubim, there were people left behind, and therefore you don't have to make a new bracha if somebody was left behind, even if you're just eating soup. Umasha evir of Yom Tif Raya meperi kisi adam da Amar mishtu bruchi bahadi adadi loy efsher shetzorich levarich birchas hamazon v'litel yadav ein raya the davke gabe birchas hamazon amrinen hachi da have a hefsek gemar suda avol tefila afal gav the mechel utzluya bahadi adadi loy efsher ein bekach klo. He's making a very interesting distinction here between benching and davening. He says when you bench, right? When you bench and then you drink the cup of benching afterwards, you make a new bar pri hagafen, because the benching was a real hefsek of the meal. Because when you bench, you can't eat. The whole idea of benching is I stopped eating, and therefore when I eat afterwards or drink afterwards, I always have to start again. But he says tefillah is not called a hefsek and a hesek hadas of the Suda, right? Because it's not, by definition, during davening I could eat. I just don't want to eat. But it's not usher to eat. I'm just davening now. But Birchas Hamazon, the whole idea of Birchas Hamazon is that my meal is over. Tanya Kavaseder Reb Chizda, Pirush Rashbam, Hadalei Maisik Reb Chizda mit Rabbanan de Reb Yehuda. Why didn't you support Reb Chizda earlier? Mishum de Bahila Ktani Behedye Yayin, because it doesn't say Yayin earlier. V'zeh Pirush Lefishi Tosoi. That works according to him. The Garsinan Hache Yayin, because here he's Gairis Yayin. But I already told you that it's a wrong girs. It's not supposed to be Yayin, because Tosfos actually holds that Yayin, it wouldn't work, because Yayin doesn't need a bracha lachar bim kaimai. Only according to Tosfos, bread and maybe cake. I'll tell you why he doesn't bring a raya from the previous one. From the Ikka the Amri B'Sanhedrin, the Bameh Nami Lefarish. What does he mean? If you'll take a look at the Braisa, Rabbi Yehuda said, Bamed Dvarim Amurim. In the original Braisa, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lines from the top, Kuv Beis Amar Aleph, Amr Rabbi Yehuda Bamed Dvarim Amurim. When is this? If there were Mesubim, but if not, if there were Chavedim, but if not, you have to make a new bracha. We have a principle that when Rabbi Yehuda said Emasai, he's explaining. When he says Bamed Dvarim Amurim, he's arguing. Emasai means when. Bamed Dvarim Amurim is similar, but it's an argument. But since there's an opinion that Bamed Dvarim Amurim is also an explanation, so there's no proof that the previous Braisa, Rabbi Yehuda was arguing. Could be he was explaining. And if he was elucidating, so then the Rabbanon is not an ayat to Reb Chizda, because could be the rabbis also hold like Reb Sheshes. So there's no proof from that Braisa to Reb Chizda, because you could say Rabbi Yehuda is explaining the rabbis. He's not arguing with the rabbis. He agrees with the Rabbanan and they agree with him. He's explaining that they hold you need Mesubim. You need people left behind, so that would actually be a refutation to Reb Chizda. So we're not clear from that Braisa if it's a support or it's not a support. It may be a support, it may not be a support. Depends how you explain. Rabbi Yehuda, is he arguing or is he explaining? But from this Braisa, it's a clear support. That's why here we have a support. Va'afal gav de chazru, maisi raya le Reb Chizda. Even though in this case they left and they came back, it's still a good raya for Reb Chizda. Reb Chizda wasn't talking about they came back. Reb Chizda was talking about continuing somewhere else. That was your question, so the two things are not connected. This is a proof that if you come back, you don't have to make a new bracha. But Reb Chizda wasn't talking about it. Reb Chizda was talking about going somewhere else to eat. So he says, this is very fundamental. The time of the shinui makom, the tzarich levarich, mishum shamidasim im kaima hi Gemarah chilasa. The reason why shinui makom needs a new bracha is because standing up from your place and leaving is considered the end of the meal. So now when you go somewhere else, it's a new meal. So the same principle will apply, going elsewhere or coming back and resuming. If going elsewhere needs a new bracha, why? Because leaving meant interruption, and going to your house meant a new meal. Coming back from your house back and eating here also would mean a new meal. Because what's the difference if you do a second meal at the same dining room table, or you do a second meal at another dining room table? It's the same concept, it's a second meal. Right? So if it's called a second meal in your house, it's also called a second meal if I come back to my house. because it means the first meal was interrupted. If leaving means the meal was interrupted, and therefore when I continue eating in your house, even though I wanted to continue eating, it's called a new meal because I interrupted the first meal because I left. Coming back to the first place is also considered a second meal because I interrupted the first meal because I left. But Mela, you could bring a raya from this brayso to Reb Chizda. This brayso says when they come back, they don't have to make a new bracha. From here, you learn that even if they don't come back, they continue eating somewhere else. They don't have to make a new bracha if they were drinking wine and they continue drinking wine elsewhere, because in this case, it's not called you interrupted and you finished and you completed your meal. You did not, because it's not, even though you left physically the place, but since it's something that requires a bracha, so the connection still. You're asking if you're sitting by a meal. No. If you're sitting by a meal and you're sitting at the table and you decide, for example, that you don't want to eat anymore. So you want to know if that's Hesach Hadas. Okay, that's a very good question. That's discussed in Chaim Siman Kofayin Tes. I'm sitting at my table. They even took away the bread. Right? And I think to myself, I'm done. And then I regret it. I want to eat. I want to eat again. You don't have to make a new amaitzi. You don't have to make. Even if I decide I don't want to eat anymore. Why? We have a principle called Yesh Kval L'Suda, which means when I sit down for a meal, sometimes, even if I think I don't want to continue, but just by nature, my appetite gets triggered and I want to continue. So it's not really called a Hesach Hadas because it's almost built into the program. You eat and then you said, I had enough, and then 5 minutes later, no, I didn't have enough. So it's not really called that you mind was taken away from the food. It's almost like you know by yourself that even when you tell yourself, I'm not going to eat anymore, you're going to eat more. So therefore it's not called Hesach Hadas. But that's only if you stayed in the same room. But if I go to your house, even if it was hamaitzi, but there was hesach hadas, which means I decide I don't want to eat anymore, and then I come to your house, I want to eat, I have to make a new hamaitzi. Because everything we spoke about before is if you didn't have hesach hadas. But if you have hesach hadas, you decide you don't want to eat anymore, and you left the house, if you stayed in the same room, it's not a problem. Then it's normal that you're going to regret, you're going to stop, you're going to decide you don't want to eat, and then you're going to regret it, and you're going to retract, and you're going to eat more. But if you actually leave the place and you go to a new place, you're going to have to make a new hamaitzi if there was hesach hadas. Or if you come back. If you come back, you're going to have to make a new hamaitzi, right? This is, by the way, about eating. When it comes to drinking, if you decide that you're not going to drink anymore, the halacha is that if you retract and you decide to drink again, you do have to make a new bracha. That's generally the halacha. I mean, if you already take the cup in your hand for benching, let's say you're doing benching with a cup of wine, and you take the cup, it's called hesach hadas even from eating. And if you want to eat afterwards, before benching, you're gonna have to make a new bracha. If you did mayim achronim, it's called hesach hadas. Even if you didn't take the cup of wine, if you did mayim achronim, it's also called hesach hadas. And then you would have to make a new bracha if you want to eat more. Yeah. So that's even if you're in one if you're even in one place. Yeah. About the bathroom. Well, I'll quote it to you. If you take a look at Arvei Chaim, Siman Kuf Ayin Ches, Arvei Chaim and Shulchan Aruch, right? The Shulchan Aruch teaches us that if somebody falls asleep in the middle of the meal, a temporary sleep, it's not called a hefsek. When you wake up again, you snooze. You wake up, you don't have to make a new bracha. And the Ramah adds that the same is true if you interrupt with other voluntary, temporary things. For example, going to the bathroom. Yeah, he says clearly, if you go to the bathroom, it's not called a hefsek. But what does this mean, going to the bathroom? So in Shulchan Aruch Harav, in Kuf Ayin Ches, and the Levush also says this. So in Shulchan Aruch Harav, in Siman Kuf Ayin Ches, he explains very well the definition. That's what I was saying before. And his definition was that the hefsek we speak about, if you leave, is only if it's significant. If you go to speak to your friend and you chat for a long time, or you go to Shul to daven, right? But if you're going to the bathroom where it's temporary, or certainly if you're speaking with your friend just for a little while, it's not significant. It's just a few words. Even if you went out of the house, or you went out to another room to bring something for the meal, so then it's not called shinui makam. It's not called you uprooted the place and you interrupted the meal, because the whole point is to come right back. You're just going to the bathroom, you're coming right back. You didn't spend time outside to do something else. to do something else. So that's why if you're eating bread and you go to the bathroom, even the shita that holds that you have to make a new hamaitzi with shinui makom, it's not if you went to the bathroom. Yeah, the same is true lahalacha. We paskin like the Ramah, right? Most of the people that bread you never have to make a new bracha. But let's say you're eating. We sit down to drink coffee, and I go to the bathroom. Do I have to make a new bracha shahakal? So this is a very interesting. So the Mishnah Brura says that if you're drinking fruits, right, or you're eating fruits, or you're drinking liquids, and then you go to the bathroom, it would be a hefsek. In Shulchan Aruch Harav he says that there's a difference. If it's things that you're kiveya on, and it's things that the kviyas is a kviyas, which is discussed in Siman Reish Yud Gimel, then even if you go to the bathroom or you take a little hefsek outside, you don't have to make a new bracha when you come back. That's gevaldik. Because it's a hefsek arai. It's just temporary. It's not called a shinui makom. But if it's something that you're not kiveya on, or something that the kviyas is called a kviyas, right? Then the hefsek arai will interrupt the sudas arai. A hefsek arai won't interrupt sudas kva, but a hefsek arai will interrupt the sudas arai. So one of the examples he gives in Luach Berachas Hananan is sitting and drinking coffee is called kva. There's a certain kviyas. Or sitting and drinking sheikhar, beer, or med, dvash. Of course, bread, wine. Wine is not a chiddush, right? Because it's things that need a bracha cherem kama. But coffee, sheikhar, dvash, these are things that people were kaiveya. They would sit down to have a drink. It was considered a kviyas. And then when you do that, even if I go out to speak to my friend just for a few minutes, I'm not talking about if I go out to Shul or I go out to have a long conversation with somebody, or I go into another room to have a telephone conversation in business, then I have to make a new bracha. But if it's just going to the bathroom, then I don't have to make a new bracha. But if it's tama shahakal that I'm sitting and eating, right? I'm sitting and eating. Or even if I'm drinking a coffee, but it's like not with a kviyas. I'm standing and drinking a coffee, even if I want to be in this place, then I would have to make a bracha when I come back from the bathroom. So this is a very practical halacha. Now, if I go from one house to another house, right? Of course I have to make a new bracha. Right? Yeah. Well, I'm going to a new place. Of course it's a shinui makom. I'll have to make a new bracha. Right, the kviyas just helps that when I come back, it's not called a shinui makom. But if I go to a new place, yeah. But there's an exception. If I'm eating chicken, I'm eating rice, I'm eating, French fries, whatever. I'm eating a yogurt, and I'm drinking a cup of milk. And I leave somebody there, and then I go out to the bathroom, and I come back, I don't have to make another bracha. Why? Because it's not shinui makom, because it wasn't interrupted, because I left somebody behind by the meal. So remember, this is only if you're there alone, and you come back, you'll have to make a new bracha. But if you left chaverim, if you left somebody there, you're eating dinner, and you go to the bathroom, you're just eating shahakal, you're not eating bread or anything. And you're not eating something that has a kviyas. Nonetheless, when you come back, you don't have to make a new bracha, because you left somebody at the table. If you go to another room in the house, so the Alter Rebbe Paskin, right, from the Shulchan Aruch, that if you had in mind when you made the bracha that you're going to go to another room, then you're good. But if you didn't have in mind, you have to make a new bracha in the other room. Although, as I told you, the Mishnah Brura is lenient about this. Yeah. Another very important thing is, even if I leave the house and I go outside of the house to the courtyard, then having in mind doesn't help. You remember, das doesn't help. But if I could see, let's say I go to the porch and I could see the dining room, I don't have to make a bracha when I come back, or I don't have to make a bracha when I continue eating it, because I could see it. Like here, let's say you go out of the shul and you stand right in front. You're in 18 for shen. You go outside, right near the tent, but you could see the room where you made the bracha. You wouldn't have to make a new bracha, even if you're drinking a coffee, or drinking a cup of water, or drinking a soda. You don't have to make a new bracha because you see it. But if you go, let's say, into the tent of 20, where you can see the original place, you would have to make a new bracha. Again, if you lechatchila, when you made a bracha, didn't decide to stay here, you just wanted to walk around, then we're good. It's called halachid drachim. We're talking about a situation where you decided you want to be here, so this becomes your place. And now a shinui makom would cause you to make a new bracha, whether you eat somewhere else or you come back, unless if you come back, but it was only a hefsek arai, and it was almanas to come right back, and it was just a temporary hefsek. It wasn't a serious hefsek. If it was a serious hefsek, even if you want to come back, it's called a shinui makom. But if it was a temporary hefsek, like we said, going to the bathroom or going to get something or speaking to your friend just a few seconds, somebody comes for tzedakah, right, and you go and you give it to them and you come right back, even if you left the house, you wouldn't have to make a bracha if there was a certain kviyas on this type of meal, even if it's only a shahakal. Well, if it's wine, it's not a problem. If it's wine or bread, remember, these are things that need a bracha achreina l'achrav b'mkaimai. So we paskin, as I told you, we paskin like Reb Chizda. We're talking to Ramah, right? The minig of the world is to paskin. Well, we spoke about the two different opinions. The Ramah says that in our countries, we paskin like Reb Chizda. So therefore, with bread and wine, it's not a big issue, because even if you go out, you go to another house, you don't have to make another bracha. I'm talking about things that are shahakal, where you don't make a bracha achreina afterwards in its place. Right.
This class is brought to you by theyeshiva.net. Please help us continue the classes. Make even a small contribution at www.theyeshiva.net/donate.